It's the worst presidential address he's ever heard in his life. He said it was the number one least effective, most painful speech he's ever heard. He said the first half, in his view, was written by AI, and the second was written by somebody who did policy back in 1975, who must be on the Biden staff, but he was completely underwhelmed. What did you think?
Anna Kasparian and Megyn Kelly agreeing on something? Yep, it actually happened. In this surprising clip from the Megyn Kelly show, Anna Kasparian, who's been distancing herself from the far left, appears on Megyn Kelly's show, and the two actually find common ground. It's crazy because these two have thrown plenty of shade at each other in the past, but now with politics becoming less about left versus right and more about regular Americans versus the elites, moments like this are starting to feel more possible. Could this be a sign of real change? Let's jump in and see what Anna and Megyn had to say.
Biden, because he's in the news after his big farewell address last night. Kevin, John Podhoretz, who hosts a podcast in Commentary Magazine and runs Commentary Magazine, and used to be a presidential speechwriter for Reagan and beyond, said it's the worst presidential address he's ever heard in his life. He said it was the number one least effective, most painful speech he's ever heard. He said the first half, in his view, was written by AI, and the second was written by somebody who did policy back in 1975, who must be on the Biden staff, but he was completely underwhelmed. What did you think?
I agree 100%. It seemed like it was like mailed in by not only Biden, but the speechwriting staff of the White House. Like, they're probably thinking, okay, we've got another week to go. Let's just see what we can do, and just let's give this to the boss and let it rip, and then move on. Right, find our next job. It was also a bit of like a microcosm of the Biden presidency in that sense, in that I'm sure it was well intentioned, right, and they came in with like lofty goals for it, but it quickly descended into incoherence, and then that was matched with a lot of the hypocrisy, like just the idea of delivering this message about how America is being controlled by this wealthy oligarchy 1 week after you just hung a medal around George Soros's neck in the White House.
It's a bit rich,
like that.
So
I'm like, I think as a staffer, I one of the things I said to myself immediately upon hearing that was like, who thought that was a good idea to push that, given the optics and the pageantry of the last week? And
yeah, who didn't see the vulnerability?
Right. Nobody thought that would not go over well, and that we'd be called on for the hypocrisy of it. And then
Stand by, let me play that so the audience can hear it. Hold your second thought. Here it is, SOT 9.
I have no doubt that America's in a position to continue to succeed. That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead.
All right, guys, tell me your thoughts in the comments, but I can't be the only one who gets irritated when the woke crowd starts preaching about billionaires running the world. They're always blaming the right, but let's be real. The left has way more billionaires backing them. Just look at Joe Biden. He gave George Soros one of the highest civilian awards you can get. This is the same Soros who owns way more radio stations and media outlets than anyone should, and somehow got fast-tracked during the last election. It's honestly ridiculous. They're always pointing fingers at others for stuff they're guilty of themselves. If you're enjoying this so far, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Now let's get back into it.
Keep going, Kevin.
So, here we are where, that they just spent an election where they tried to frame everything as this pivot point for American democracy. And every single public poll shows that people were more worried about the Biden administration and its threat to democracy. So, it not only I think it's, there's a false sense of alarmism that they're trying to continue to push, but it's just the hypocrisy of the message and how that message continues to land very poorly with the public. It continues to boggle my mind why they continue to push that. And then I think the last thing is...
Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of empty platitudes. Like Joe Biden's sort of go-to move is to always say, and there's nothing America can't achieve if we put our minds to it. 5 minutes after he just listed all of the things that are sort of dangerous and destructive about what the other half of the country has believes and has essentially taken to an electorate and won on. So I just, and like the last thing I'd say is like it was 15 minutes long. Most of the people that I talked to about it when I asked their reaction said they didn't even get their way through a minute speech that people couldn't sit through. And it harkens back to the the State of the Union speech, which the Biden administration had swore was going to be this, big energizing jolt to the American electorate to reframe the 2020 race. And, all of the reviews of that State of the Union, they all said that was going to be a game changer for their campaign. 48 hours later from the State of the Union, just like this, instantly forgettable. It's almost like I always call it like cotton candy messaging. Like it melts on contact. No one's even going to remember it 48 hours from now.
Well, I mean, your hips remember the cotton candy, so there's that distinction. Here's one of the things, the galling things. Kevin mentions, George Soros. There's a very long list of billionaires on both sides that make donations, but it's 2-1 Dems to Republicans. It's the Democrats definitely outweigh the Republicans when it comes to billionaire donors. To the point where you may remember this moment too during the Kamala Harris campaign. She went on with Stephen Colbert, and they had this moment.
There are quite a few billionaires who support you. You are from Northern California, after all, where they grow them in fields out there. Who's your favorite billionaire? Because we all have a favorite billionaire. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Oprah. I'm sorry. I claimed Oprah. You can't take her now.
So, I mean, we all know this. So why is Biden doing it's just if you're a tech billionaire and suddenly you're part of this oligopoly that's trying to rule America with a tech iron fist?
I mean, honestly, I agree with...
Can you believe this? Anna Kasparian and Megyn Kelly actually finding common ground? It's almost like seeing fire and water working together. But honestly, it speaks volumes about how much things have shifted. This isn't your typical left versus right debate anymore. It's about everyone waking up to the bigger picture, calling out the elites and the system that's failing everyday people. When voices as different as Anna's and Megyn's align on something, it really makes you stop and think. Do you think this is a sign of a bigger change? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you think. Follow it with, all right, let's dive back in and see what else they had to say.
The message that Biden was trying to put out there in this speech, which I also agree, I had a difficult time getting through it. It was kind of boring for me. So I got through maybe 25%, tried to watch it multiple times, could not get through it. But in regard to the message that he's trying to put out there in regard to, corporate rule in America and money in politics in America, that is an accurate message. But you both make a great point about how money in politics has corrupted both political parties. And for the Democrats to pretend as though they're totally innocent of this is ridiculous to me, especially considering what we experienced in the last election cycle. I mean, Kamala Harris raised far more money than the Trump campaign did. And in fact, she raised far more dark money than the Trump campaign did. And then she moved forward in essentially squandering all of that money. And I think this past election really shows the kind of grift that exists within our election cycles, because that money gets spent with all these consultants and all these various, PR groups, and the amount of money they charge for their services, which have proven to be a failure in this past election cycle for the Democrats, is absolutely outrageous. And so I feel like our elections have become more about, a business.
A few years back, you'd never see Anna Kasparian and Megyn Kelly on the same show, let alone agreeing on anything. But here we are, and now they're both calling out how the system is failing regular Americans. Honestly, something like this would have been unthinkable in 2016 or 2018. Thanks to Trump shaking up the political landscape, the conversation has shifted. It's no longer about left versus right. It's about the people versus the elites. And that's why moments like this, where Anna and Megyn actually find common ground, are happening. They may not see eye to eye on everything, but they both recognize that we're being played by the same corrupt system. And can we talk about the Democrats acting like they're above all the corruption and dark money? It's a joke. They're some of the worst offenders. Joe Biden goes on about oligarchies like he's not a walking example of one. It's all projection. They just want to distract from what's really going on. But guess what? People are waking up, and the old tricks aren't working anymore. Seeing these two agree on something as big as this is kind of wild, but it might just be what we need. What do you think? Is this a step in the right direction for the country? And how do you feel about what Megyn and Anna said about billionaires and corruption in politics? Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button if you're enjoying this, and don't forget to subscribe. Catch you in the next one.